and welcome to the school board meeting for the Carson City School District. We will begin with a flag salute by Ryan Green. Thank you, and we'll move on to agenda item 2, adoption of the agenda as submitted for possible action.
So moved. Second.
Okay, okay, it sounded like Joe, but I couldn't see, so I wanted to make sure. Okay, motion by trustee Swerzik and seconded by trustee Cassiopo. Do we have any further discussion or public comment? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Agenda item 3, superintendent's report for information only. Mr. Stokes.
Thank you, President Crossman, members of the board. Just have a few items to add to your calendar. Tomorrow, from about 8 o'clock on, we're going to have 2 sessions of training that will happen at this district office in the boardroom. The Family Education Rights and Privacy Act will be reviewed for many of our staff members. As you know, that's a really important piece of legislation for us, and it's been a little while since some of our staff members have had access to that information, and so that'll be going on tomorrow. Also would like you to be aware of the fact that our foundation will meet this Thursday. That's September 14th. We'll start at 11:30, and looking forward to that gathering again, kind of as summer ends and as things continue forward. It's good work that's being done. We also have scheduled...
Will that also be in the boardroom?
That will be, yes. Thank you. On Monday, September the 18th, we're going to hold a meeting of the Bond Oversight Committee. That will also be in the boardroom at the district office at 11:30. And as you may know, as we move through the Master Plan Committee, that group then becomes the Bond Advisory Committee or the Bond Oversight Committee, and so it's essentially the same group of folks, but it really helps as they've been part of the planning and they understand the projects that are coming about. And of course, we've had many of our board members that have been attending those meetings and would invite you to do so if you are interested. And then finally, we'll be holding our community PLC on September 20th, and that'll be at the Carson High School Library starting at 6 p.m. on September 20th. Do you have any questions about any of these items? Kind of feels like we're back in session, and so our usual and customary activities are beginning again, and so we're looking forward to carrying these forward. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes. Go ahead and move on to board reports and board member comments for information only. We'll begin with our representative from Pioneer High School, Sienna Fletcher.
Thank you, members of the board. All Pioneer staff are asked to meet for a staff photo on Friday, September 15th at 7:15. Pioneer High School will be having an open house on September 19th from 6 to 8 p.m. Food will be provided, so bring the entire family. Rock Sport is starting up this year on the 22nd. Students must meet all eligibility requirements and get your permission slips into Mr. Lorian. Students who are interested in leadership, there will be a sign-up meeting during lunch on Thursday, September 14th. All PHS students are encouraged to meet with their teacher mentor. If you do not know who your mentor is, just ask any teacher. Thank you, and this concludes the activities, events, and announcements for Pioneer High School.
Thank you, Sienna. Trustee Carini.
From Seeliger Elementary School, Thursday, September 21st is Picture Day, which would be a week from this Thursday, and it's a free choice of clothing on this day. It's also never too early to save the date for the annual pumpkin patch, October 14th. That's where I get my pumpkins every year. I also have some band news from Carson Middle School. Record numbers this year, 220 band members, which roughly is about 20% of the students at Carson Middle School are now in band. And there's numerous academic studies linking success in academics to music. Thank you Thank you, school board. Thank you, administration, for keeping music in our schools. And then lastly, the Carson Middle School Band Program will be having a car wash Saturday, September 23rd, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the grocery outlet parking lot. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Creaney. Trustee Casiopo?
Thank you. A couple of things. The high school, Carson High School, wants to remind everybody tomorrow night, September 13th, from 4:30 to 8 o'clock is open house. This is kind of a version 2.0, if you will. It's they've really kind of thrown all the stops out here, but they're calling it open house, open hearts. They're going to have food and donations. They're going to have entertainment from cheer, dance, theater, ROTC, choir, and orchestra. I can't even go through all of this really quick because there's a lot going on. But it's a chance to, of course, meet your teachers, see what's going on at the high school in general. Really, they're trying to really bridge that partnership between the parents, the community, and the high school. So if you have a child there or you're an interested community member in getting involved, this is a good chance to get involved at the high school and see what's going on. Regarding HOSA, let's see. I'm sorry if someone repeated it, I didn't hear it, but Saturday, September 23rd, from 10 to 1 in front of the high school, which means in the loop, they'll be doing a fundraising car wash. They're also volunteering for the Pancreatic Walk Run at Silver Oak on this weekend, Saturday the 16th. If anyone's interested in running it, registration starts at 7 a.m. Let's see, they're volunteering at the Jog for Jordan on September 30th at McFadden Square. The 10K starts at 9, the 5K starts at 9:15, and registration, if you'd like to run, starts at 7 a.m. They're also volunteering at Carson's open house on Wednesday, tomorrow, to help parents find their way to classes, and they'll be having a booth at the bonfire on Monday night for homecoming. So there's all kinds of good stuff going on. I wanted to just really briefly let everybody know who's been following. This summer, some of the Jumpstart students started over the summer in their accelerated class, and I somehow missed that paper somewhere. But long story short, there were, and I'm going to get the number wrong, so don't hold me to it, but there were about 20 or so kids, maybe more than that were involved, and I think all of them got A's. One kid got a B, so they did really well in it. And now, like everybody else, they're back at school. So we wish everybody, them, the AP students, honor students, and everybody, all kinds of luck and hard work this semester. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Casiopo. Trustee Walker?
So a couple things going on at Bordewick Bray. They're going to have a PTA movie night this Friday at 7 o'clock. They are all business. The After School Dolphins Club started up this week, and so they're working hard. And they're excited for a new program that their PTA is offering, which is an enrichment program for 1st through 5th graders. And they're going to have enrichment options such as yoga or chess or various activities. And then Fremont Elementary School wants to remind everybody that they are in the middle of their cookie dough fundraiser. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Walker. Trustee Swerzik?
Nothing, John.
Okay, Trustee Wilkie?
Mark Twain, they have their pre-K orientation at 5:30 on September 14th. Picture Day is on the 19th, and if you haven't got cookie dough from anybody else, they start their cookie dough drive on September 22nd.
Never get too much.
Right. The other thing is I attended the parent involvement family engagement meeting this week. There was really good conversation and presentation about the Nevada School Performance Framework. And Washoe's Equity and Diversity Department was there, and they gave a presentation which was really interesting too. They're doing a lot of stuff outside the box. And we worked on the matrix for Objective 8 in the state improvement plans.
Thank you, Trustee Wilkie. Trustee Green? Okay. For Fritch Elementary School, their fundraiser will begin next Tuesday, September 19th, and I believe it is the wrapping paper one. I haven't heard yet, but so if you don't want cookie dough. But if you do want cookie dough, Carson Middle School's fundraiser is already in full swing, and they are selling the Otis Spunkmeyer cookie dough. So find your favorite Carson Middle School student, make sure that you know them, and they know where you live so they can deliver it to you. And also, I think that's all that I have for the schools that are going on. With that, I was going to add a comment about the high school open house because I've gotten several phone calls for it. So my understanding is 4:30 to 6:30 is like the open fair.
Correct.
Where they're seeing it, and then 6 to 8 is going through your students' classes in the bell order. So anyway, just in case anybody didn't get their messages. Do we have any other announcements for board reports? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 5, association reports. Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Go ahead and move on to agenda item 6, public comment. Do we have any public comment this evening? Let me see. Okay. If we don't have anybody willing to jump up, I'm not going to read everything, and we'll go ahead and move on from public comment to agenda item 7, informational update on capital projects in the Carson City School District for discussion only. Mark Kornick and Mark Johnson. Mark and Mark. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, President Crossman, trustees, and executive staff. Thank you for having us here for our annual slideshow for y'all on all the really cool things we've been doing this summer. It's been a very busy summer, so there's quite a few pictures on this presentation, so I'm going to zip through them pretty quick. If I'm going too fast, just raise your hand, say, hey, bub, slow down. Or if I'm going too slow, do the yawn thing and say, come on, get it going. All right. So we're starting with Al Seeliger Elementary School. And a lot of these projects, are major maintenance projects that come out of the maintenance budget, capital projects. And then this year we'll have a little section on bond update and then our energy savings performance contract. So all of those can be considered capital projects, but they just have different funding resources. So we hold aside about $75,000 a year to take care of our parking lots and grounds areas. We don't always hit that, but that's what we keep there, and we'll move that money if we need to. But we started with Seeliger this year. That's the south parking lot that got seal coated and painted. And then the north employee parking lot got a makeover this summer as well. We installed some trash compactors, and Seeliger was one of the schools that got that this year. I wanted to throw this in. This wasn't funded by any of those projects. This was actually an insurance claim. But on February 6th, Monday, it was a professional development day, 7:30 in the morning. We had a fire in the switchgear at Seeliger outside the cafeteria. We were lucky it happened at that time. Nobody was in the building. Our custodian saw it immediately, and we had it put out. But it took us until Wednesday evening to get it all replaced. And we lost a day of school on Tuesday. And Wednesday we operated with power everywhere except for the kitchen. So we had floodlights in the kitchen all day, and they did a fine job, our super women in the kitchen. And that was another part of the breaker. So it was an old piece of equipment that moved as it turns on and off, and we think it just wore and caused an arc. So we had all that replaced. And one of the reasons I brought this up is we had a rough year when it came to this. At Fritch, we had either a lightning strike or a power surge that took out our chiller. Luckily, that was in the late winter, and we didn't need cooling that much in the building. And it took quite a while to get that back up, and that was an insurance claim that was paid for. We had another fire before school started after winter break at Pioneer High School and one of the portables. We got that repaired, and it's operating right now as the cafeteria, and we'll be using that through our construction. And then we had another small one at Empire where some birds got up under a light and built a nest on top of the light and started a fire. Well, all those lights have been replaced through our contract, so all of that was done, not to mention the floods, right? So it was a tough year. Bordewick Bray, this is a new recycle area. We now have it separated from our trash. We recycle cardboard and office paper, part of our sustainability program, and we have this at several schools now. This was a repurposed chiller that was mothballed behind our warehouse. That part of the energy project, we brought it down and replaced a 30-year-old chiller at Bordewick, and it's smaller and operating way more efficient and much cooler in the building. Across campus at Student Support Services, we did a bunch of concrete upgrades. We had some trip hazards there. In the back on the north side, as you can see, it's all shady. It's all ice in the winter, typically, because the downspouts would dump right there. We have them dumping into a pipe underneath the sidewalk and emptying into the DI system out in the center of the parking lot. So that'll help this summer. We, along with the bus lane to Bordewick, we resealed all of that area and repainted it. In Carson Middle School, this is right after they had the gym surface resealed. It's always a beautiful sight, Carson Middle School gym. As you can see in the back there, there's a brown streak, paint streak all the way around the building there, and we never knew why that was brown. So this year, Dan Sadler asked if we could paint it. So there's our painter there painting that stripe, and it came out beautiful. Check out that gym next time you're over there. This is the intervention office. Students can stop by there. They don't have to come in the office. They can drop off what they need to the attendant right there now. And we did that one in-house. This was the back area. This is the plaza area in the back patio area of Carson Middle School. The concrete area used to be decomposed granite, and the building is CMU block. And it started to fail this winter and was leaking into the music room. We've corrected most of the music room and repainted it. We need to do a little more work. But outside, we decided to stucco over that, clean it all up, kill off whatever's on there, and stucco it like the rest of the new section of the building. And it came out really nice, and it gives another raised kind of bench area. They plan on putting some benches out there to hang out after lunch and such. Just after school ended, we had a water line break right off of the plaza. It was 5 feet down underneath that concrete. So this is the repair we did. It shut the chiller down for 2 days of 100-degree temperature. So our offices were suffering there, but we got it done pretty quick. And we did some other concrete work on the King Street side by the man gates there. These are the guys working on Carson Middle School's gym. We finally got a new gym roof, as that roof kept ending up in my parking lot during windstorms. And it came out great. They also got new skylights on the top of that. Carson High School, that's their gym resurfacing. Up in the culinary, if you've been up there, most of the countertops up there are old tile, and they were done years ago. The teacher came to us and said, I really need another work area here. So we had a company come in and build this stainless steel counter, and came out wonderful. This you'll see probably in a couple weeks at the PLC over in the library at Carson High School. This was just a window in the wall of the library, and now what we've turned it into is a IT support center for Carson High School. So an IT employee, I think it's Carlos, that's over there now. He spends his time in that room repairing computers, since more than 30% of the repairs are done at Carson High School, they decided to put an employee there, and he can also service the staff in their classrooms as well. This was called the old spin room. They had like bikes in there, stationary bikes, and they don't do that anymore. So now they dance. So we got rid of the carpet and cleaned up the walls, and we brought in VCT and did a little blue pattern in there, and they have a dance class there, and so they're real happy about that. This is a surge protector, and we've put surge protectors in every area in this project that we put new equipment into. Carson High School, having 5 or 6 remodels over time, has kind of a jumbled up electrical system. That's why 2 years ago we regrounded the whole building. So now we put in surge suppression to catch those spikes that are coming into the building so we don't lose power supplies and IT equipment. This is the district grounds building behind high school, got a new roof this year. Carson High School football stadium, soccer stadium here. We did a safety upgrade on the bleachers. The footboards and the kickboards in the back were all wooden previously, and they flexed quite a bit. And the openings were bigger than the new codes. So I would have gotten you a finished picture, but they're finishing it this week, tomorrow. So on the 4 aisles that go from top to bottom, they've been widened, and there'll be a safety rail in between, in the middle of that. So I understand it's slippery going up and down that. So that took a little bit to retrofit it. Most of the fencing around it will be retrofitted by Friday. And yeah, that's it. That we did the home side this year. We have a quote for the other side that hopefully we can get done next year.
Monica,
Sure.
that made one big difference. Now, when I went to the game, the opening game, before you did this, I always had a fear of going through. Those things were very flexible, let's say.
Flexible is a good.
But no, this was, and I noticed the people walking up, and it was all much safer.
Yeah.
So thank you for making that happen.
Absolutely. And also in the spring, we put in a new scoreboard at the baseball stadium. That was a joint effort between our department and Principal Fusion. So that came out well. Pretty much on the same campus as our transportation office, one of the roofs over there got redone this summer. There's an equipment yard between ROTC and transportation where we store a lot of equipment. Well, they needed some more parking for employees and for equipment. So we brought a lot of rock in and whacked all that down and came up with slurry seal in there, and then a bit of a painting for more parking. And then their mechanics lounge got new flooring. They had carpet in there that was original from when we remodeled over there, and we put in a new LVT, a laminate type vinyl planking that really came out nice. Eagle Valley's gym, we didn't get a real bright picture of this, but I really like the bleachers when they're in. Their upper parking lot got some upgrades, crack seal and painting. Back where the buses let off, there was a lot of pitted concrete that we replaced there. And we also provided a recycle area there as well. Most of the time, those things were up in the dirt or out in the parking lot rolling around. So now we have them kind of anchored in a good spot, close to the kitchen as well. And in Empire, they got also some crack seal and parking lot work. We had a really old piece of playground equipment there that was unsafe, falling apart. That was removed this summer. Oh, and Empire also got gutters reworked. All of their gutters leak pretty bad, so we'll see. I'm not getting any complaints right now, so hopefully they're working good now. Fremont got a new seal on part of their driveway that needed it there. This was a heat pump project. Those are the heat pumps that are in there. So Mark Twain and Fremont got new heat pumps. I'll elaborate on that a little bit more in the future here. More surge suppression in both buildings. That was McKinstry wanted to protect their products they were putting in for sure, and so that was part of the project. Fritch got some concrete work out behind the B kindergarten there on the exit, new sidewalk. They also got a new transition between A and B parking lots. That used to be an old curb that just got beat up and people would run over it, and so this is a little bit safer and widens the approach for them. This was some drainage work along Mountain Street that we put in a flooded area. They also got a trash compactor over there. Gleason PDC, they had 1, 2, 3, there's 6 windows in the front, and only 3 of them were exposed. The other ones were covered up, so we left 2 unexposed on the ends and put 2 new windows in, which really brought a lot of light into the hallway there. And they're really happy about that down there. And then in the back, we had an old chimney that was about 15, 20 feet high that was part of the old boiler system that was starting to fail. So we thought we'd get it down before it did fail. And this is Mark Twain. Their drop-off area and their bus area got resealed and painted this year. This is a classroom that we kind of did a pilot test on a new carpeting that we want to standardize. It's a carpet square. Those are exact same piece, 2-foot tiles. We just quarter turn them as they install them. So it comes out with different patterns, and you can play with it and do other kind of patterns. But the carpet we took out of there was a broad loom. It was a roll stock, and this is a tougher carpet. If you damage one tile, you can replace one tile. It also has a rubber back, so it holds the moisture so that it's not getting down onto the floor, and you can get it up. It also fits our sustainability policy. When we go to replace that, we can turn it into them and they'll recycle it. So this comes in, the other hallways are red and blue. They come in that style too, so eventually we want to kind of move through the school and replace those. Also, Mark Twain got a trash compactor. This Pioneer High School, this is a new roof on the A building on the south side. This was a transition area with the new single point entry, the white roof, and we had issues leaking there. When they put it in, they couldn't get the white part, which is called TPO, up under enough. So when that roof was ready, it was primed to fix that leak, so it came out real nice. This was a big hole in the parking lot. No, this is where we found a heating oil tank in the playground. So when we were doing some coring, we knew something was down there. We weren't sure. There was some oil in it. We got the oil out. Unfortunately, the tank had failed a little bit, and we had some contamination. It would have been a very costly project if it wasn't for Nevada Environmental Protection Agency has a tank program. And so we applied for a grant through that, and it looks like 95% of that cost will be paid for. And it's been cleaned up and patched. No more hole. And then over at the Operations Center, in that opening right there used to be a ramp and a couple doors in the back of our building. We've now filled that in to make, and put a window in to make space, an office space for our admin assistant for capital projects, who's here today. Jessica Munson over there, who works with Mark, sitting with our operations superstar, Carol Akers. And Jessica has an office right next to Mark now. And Mark's office to the right. We have a conference room and a storage room in the center there. And we did end up putting in ADA ramp through the warehouse to get into the building. It's tough when you're dealing with the 1950 salt sheds, you know, and trying to operate out of their asphalt floor and whatever. So that's the end of my presentation on the major projects. I got 2 other short things to tell you about. Are there any questions on those other projects? And that was the list that we provided you. You could see there's over 130 projects this year.
Mark, on your list, you had 2 projects that were designated as bond projects in amongst everything else. And that was the elevator modifications or repairs at Carson High and Eagle Valley.
Yes.
Why were they, first of all, why were they on the, this was the summer of last year's, and then they were on this list. Are there safety issues with these elevators?
There's upgrade issues that need to be taken care of it. As far as how unsafe they are, I couldn't tell you. I mean, we ran a expert consulting firm in there that came up with these upgrades. If there was safety issues that prevented us to use those, we would have been shutting those down. So at this point, we just need to upgrade those, and we weren't able to get an RFP out, or they're so busy in the summer we couldn't get them in, that we'll be doing that project either winter break or in the spring.
I mean, we didn't have an elevator inspection then.
Yes, we've had elevator inspections every year.
This was part of the OSHA program or what?
State. It's a state elevator
Yeah, they
program.
have a boiler
So-
elevator inspection.
So it might be OSHA. I've never heard them say OSHA, but
Okay, and so they pointed out some,
no, they've passed the elevators.
they did.
Yep.
Are there any other questions at this time? Okay.
All right. So this, I just want to give you a couple slides in the progress of our energy performance contract. And these slides are from a presentation that Dan Adink at McKinstry and myself did at the Energy Service Coalition National Conference in Las Vegas. And basically our presentation was that it's really more than just energy savings. You know, the way we did our project, we were able to leverage capital funding to get quite a few projects done that would have taken us years to get done. So you know, when you get $500,000 a year for capital projects and you have heat pumps that cost $2 million, it takes a while to save or bond or whatever to get that done. So basically these were our challenges. Again, unfunded capital needs, right? We put together that $50 million list in the Facilities Master Plan Committee on all the things that we needed done. And with that limited funding annually, it's hard to get done. And these were the projects that we were able to fund: the heat pumps, the roof, the chiller, and the HVAC units. And I'll elaborate on them in a minute. One of the other challenges were we don't really have a lot of skilled HVAC maintenance staff, and we rely on outsourcing for that. And we're hoping to change that through this project. Also, I guess it's a good problem to have, we have a very low energy use. You can see our energy use index is 44.7. That's the lowest in the state. And we're hoping through this project to get it into the 30s, which is unheard of. Mr. Fueling likes that, because whenever I save money, that money disappears somehow somewhere else to the kids, which is good. highlights of the project: comprehensive LED lighting retrofit. Almost every fixture in the district was touched and replaced. These are 10-year warranty bulbs on these, on most of the fixtures, and this will eliminate not only savings, but it'll be maintenance savings. We won't be changing light bulbs on our staff. We won't have staff on ladders, having accidents, and we don't have mercury sitting above our kids' heads and our teachers' heads anymore. This is a wonderful thing. The indoor water conservation project was basically, we went through all the fixtures and aerated them and tuned them up. We went through all the toilet fixtures, and there's a tuning process. Who knows? Who knew that? But it changes the flushing curve and all this kind of thing. So, there's guaranteed savings there. We installed the 3 trash compactors. So those were the 3 main projects. The next 4 projects were projects that were capital funded, where we assisted on the capital funding by about almost $500,000 of capital funding that we put in, and we got over $3 million worth of projects through the financing. So the 88 heat pumps, the middle school got its new roof, 4 rooftop units, which are yet to be put on. That's coming next on the Carson Middle School STEM wing. And then we replaced the chiller, and there it is going in right there. I like that picture, at Bordewick. And another part of the savings is the Power Ed behavioral training program, which is a engagement program for students and staff to be energy efficient. We'll be kicking that off in mid-October. And this is just a quick summary of the project. Over $6 million cost, incentives from NV Energy and others, $187,000, and then that district capital with an annual savings of $366,000 guaranteed. Any questions on that? We're still in the middle of commissioning of most of those projects, but most of the projects are done. They're just fine-tuning everything and balancing the systems. They want to make sure that these systems are running right because they're guaranteeing the savings. Good? All right. Just a quick update on a bond project status. It's from our facilities master plan. I believe the last time we met was February, and that's when we took their recommendation to you folks on the projects that we want to do or we need to do. So this is the last presentation I did at the facilities master plan meeting, and I just plugged in and read what the status is. So as of today, we received bids from subcontractors today through Q&D Construction, who's our CMAR, our construction manager at risk. We're in pre-construction phase, so hopefully we'll move on. We weren't as successful as I would have liked to on the amount of people bidding. There's just so much work out there, and there's not a big workforce. But we'll be, Mark was up there today while I was with another architect, and went through the opening, and then we're going to go through all this in our usual meeting on Thursday. Pioneer, we were kind of on the same line, but we ran into some budget issues. So we had to regroup and come up with a slightly reduced conceptual design. And we're working with quality, with Q&D and our architect right now. We got a peek of the new design today, and we'll be discussing that in our meeting on Thursday as well. And we're pretty confident that we brought that down to the right amount of square feet on that addition, because it all comes down to square feet.
So what did we have to cut there, Mark?
Well, originally when we had it, we had the building connected to the other buildings. So we had to remove that connection. So it's still more going to be like a small campus. The portables will be removed. Yeah. And there's some HVAC changes that we made. and we changed some other space that, talking with Jason, he didn't think we needed. We ran this project, we ran by Mr. Stokes and the team, and we sat with Mr. Zone, and we came up with a plan. And then Berger Hannafin went back and did a redesign, and it's still going to look really nice. It's a really nice project. Fremont, we're accepting proposals for a CMAR this week on the 14th, and we had 6 CMARs at our mandatory pre-meeting, and I believe all 6 are going to bid on it. They're all very interested. Recommendation of award would be on the 6th. This is our timeline, October 6th, and then we'd be coming back here for approval of that pre-construction contract and the CMAR with you folks on the 26th of October. And Mark Twain would mirror that schedule because both of them are out right now. Convert former metal shop into the Science, Technology, Engineering, Math, STEM lab at Carson Middle. We had our 3rd conceptual meeting today, and the space is looking really nice, and I think we have a meeting again in 2 weeks, and I think we'll be finalizing it at that point. And then completion of the 2000 bond project, which was the district office. The facilities master plan recommended that the premium that we got when we sold the bonds would go toward this project and finish this project because some of the issues we have there, and brought that to you guys. And our first conceptual drawing is in the hands of Mr. Stokes. Hopefully he's sharing that with his administrative team, and we'll be putting together kind of a design team and interviewing some of the other folks and seeing what all the other needs are. And then our IT infrastructure upgrades at the secondary schools listed there. The product has been received, and our IT team is going to install that. They've gone through a little bit of a transition, so winter and spring break is the schedule for the install. Our surveillance and camera project is substantially complete. We just have some punch walk items to complete. And major maintenance, well, you saw the slideshow, gave you the handouts. Those are those major projects that we just keep continuing to chip away at with, as much funding we can throw at it out of maintenance. And then tenant improvement at Seeliger and Bordewick. These would kind of be on the coattail of the other 2, Bordewick or Mark Twain and Fremont. Space is needed, but I think we need to discuss this a little bit more with the facilities master plan and the administrators, because some plans have been put in place to take care of that capacity issue in those schools, and so we need to know if those are the type of plans we need to keep or to go forward with some other TI projects. So I think that'll be a topic we need to discuss with them. And there's the meeting. That's all I have. Any questions?
Do we have any questions? Trustee Casiopo.
Not a question. Mark, I just wanted to say you guys did a fantastic job. I mean, I haven't been keeping track of all the projects, but there's been something going on, seems like at every facility. And I mean, a lot of this stuff was long overdue, and like you alluded to, there's more financial need than funds available. And I really just wanted to say good job on prioritizing things and working with staff in the community. This was kind of a monumental task, so good for you guys.
Appreciate that. We have a good team. We have a few projects you'll see there that aren't complete yet. And one of them I told my ground supervisor I'd mention, because we have that ditch at Carson High School where we plan to do some riprap in there. We still have a foot of water in that, and he has told me he's never seen water in that ditch this late in the year. So we can't do it until the water's out. So I'm hoping a couple weeks of dry weather, but so
It's raining right now.
and then it'll snow, So.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kornick.
Bet.
We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 8, informational update on student enrollment in the Carson City School District for 2017-2018. For discussion only, Mr. Andrew Fueling.
Thank you, President Kosman. Good evening, trustees. I have a short presentation for you tonight, but just to kind of review what's been happening regarding enrollment and impact, fiscal impact of what we've seen. So this hopefully is large enough to see, but I guess just to start, when you're talking about the current school year, 17-18 school year, these were the the enrollment first day at all of our different schools. This was day 13, so that was last Wednesday. That's the last day that I have information for. But you can see, and this is not abnormal, but we have from day one, within the first 2 weeks, we generally add a lot of kids. A lot of families don't realize that school has maybe started yet. They're still thinking they're on the 30, 40 years ago Labor Day calendar, and you don't have to worry about it till then. So we do see a pretty large increase over the first couple weeks, but it's pretty dramatic. Almost 200 kids were added in that time. And to remember too that every single day matters now with average daily enrollment. Every day is essentially like $40 that we receive for each student. So every day does matter. And then just to put it in a little bit of historical context, just the last 3 school years towards the beginning of the year, and I used October because usually the numbers have stabilized by then, but you can just get a sense for over the last 3 years compared to where we are now at the beginning of any given school year. So starting at 75-46, 75-71, jumping to 76-30 on day one. Now this is October, so day one we were actually under, but again we added a lot of kids. So this is where we think we stand right now, around 7,700. And I just put in the numbers too at the end of any of these given school years, so you can see there's gradual progression and increase there. So it seems to be trending back in a direction that is good. It brings some of its own problems in some ways with finding space, but it's definitely, I'd rather be growing than not growing, so it's a good place to be. Are there any questions? Oh yeah.
Where is Carson Online in there?
Carson Online is buried within Pioneer High School. So, and I don't know, I guess all the gymnastics of how some kids, they might be partially Carson Online, partially Pioneer High School on campus, and some kids are going to school to Pioneer to do some of their online programming, but those numbers are, wrapped up within there. I think the biggest thing to point out to me, and I'll actually have this on the next slide, the elementary schools, for the most part, you do see some changes, but overall they stayed relatively stable. Empire, it had lost some kids through the year last year and have continued kind of down this year. Fremont has jumped quite a bit, and that's caused us to need to hire a kindergarten teacher because of the numbers in their classrooms. Fritch Elementary is down a little bit. Mark Twain was down quite a bit to start. They have come back. And Seeliger is held pretty steady. They always seem to be right around 600. The story of the year for us has been Carson Middle School. You can see where they ended last year to where they are right now. It's up about 100 kids. So that's caused us to have quite a few conversations as well, how to manage that quickly. Eagle Valley is down slightly. Carson Middle School also is up. So Carson Middle and Carson High seem to be the two schools that have seen the most growth so far this year. We'll see where it goes. So if there's no more questions, I'll just jump to the next one. And this just breaks it down by grade levels. So for the elementary schools, You can see right now we're at 3449, and historically, we're actually slightly down since 3 years ago. So that, considering the capacity issues we have at the elementary schools, it's actually not such a bad thing to have a little bit of a breather there. But at the middle school level, again, over 1,800. And we were down around 1,600 previously, just 2 years ago. High school level, about 2,400. And again, looking back a couple of years, that actually does show a bit of a gain from just 3 years ago. So any questions about that? Okay. So in the budget, I should have just said budgeted, but in the budget that was approved by the board back in May at our annual budget hearing, there was I do enrollment projections, and so the projected enrollment I had increasing to 7646, and so the budget was based off that number. Based off that number, I then try to look at historically how many of those kids end up dropping throughout the school year, and then there's certain weightings for pre-K kids. And so I had we were using a weighted enrollment of 7563.3. So now actual head count is about 7,700. And so that raises what I would call a tentative projection, because I have not had time to really dive into my enrollment model to essentially to look at how last year went from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, because we always lose a couple kids. So this might actually, I think if anything, it would probably increase. But adding some kids to what we think would be funding within the DSA model. So previously we had 53,714,557 that we were expecting for DSA funds. And with the increase expected in average daily enrollment, it increases to over 54 million. So it's a difference of almost $550,000 of increased revenue. And again, it's still really early, and I have quite a bit more work to do on that. But just to, I guess, I mean, I know you've heard a lot through your updates about all the kids coming. So just to give you an idea of kind of the impact on what we're seeing. So
AJ, since we've been using the average daily attendance one, did you notice a big difference between using just that one count day we had and then going to this daily average? Did you see if we lost money, gained money?
So the first year, trying to think, the first year of the biennium, the last biennium, we definitely lost money because of it. When you get into last year, we actually, our enrollment did not drop much during the year at all. And so if you go back the last 5 years, I was really concerned, because you look at the last 5 years, the number of kids you had starting the school year, it was dropping pretty dramatically every year. And last year, there was really a change in that. So I don't know. I think part of that is, maybe some kids are leaving, but it's offset by families moving in, which would be good. But also I think the work that, especially, where you saw the losses was at the high school level, and the work that is going on at Carson High and Pioneer to keep kids in and keep them going, I think has really made a huge difference. So kudos to Principal Fusan and Principal Zona for that. So if anything, now as I kind of look back at this and start projecting it, and I'll look historically at how we've lost kids, but each year it seems to be less and less. So again, that bodes well for funding going forward, so that helps us out. That's all I got.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Noah, do we have any other questions on this? No? Okay, thanks. We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 9, discussion on proposal to eliminate Carson City School District Policy 529, public performance by students. First reading for discussion only. Mrs. Susan Kima.
Susan Kima for the record. Oh, I don't want that yet. There we go. Susan Kima for the record. The proposal to be presented to the board, the proposal tonight that is presented to you is to eliminate Policy 529. The necessary information that's in Policy 529 about overnight field trips is now located in the newly revised policy for field trips, which is 213. So this is a redundant policy. Plus, I would say it's not been looked at since 1970.
we have any questions on this? Okay, thanks. We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 10, discussion on proposal to eliminate Carson City School District Regulation 529.1, supervision of student activities, for discussion only.
First and foremost, I need to point out that for some reason in this policy series, there wasn't a Regulation 529. It skipped right to 529.1. So somewhere back in history, there was an error made at that point. The same here, the necessary information for student field trips is found in Regulation 213 field trips and other regulations governing certified professional behavior. So the proposal on the table is to eliminate this particular regulation as well.
Do we have any questions or concerns? Okay, go ahead and move on to agenda item 11. Oh, wait. Okay, Trustee Swerzik, before we move on, go ahead.
Okay, this is on the regulation. You know, in the executive summary, you have as being presented for the trustees' consideration to eliminate. We never approve regulations. We approve policies.
That's correct. So I guess we're going to present to you, instead of asking for your vote, we're going to present to you that we're also going to eliminate this regulation. Thanks for the correction.
Are we ready to move on? Do we have any other questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 11, discussion on proposed changes to Carson City School District Policy 527, student fundraising, first reading, for discussion only.
Policy 527, student fundraising, was reviewed by site administrators and was considered current practice. If you notice that the date on the policy, the previous revision date, was in 2016, so it hasn't been that long ago. However, a formal language addressing the Carson City School Board of Trustees was added to update Policy 527 so that we are making it congruent with other policies addressing the board in the manual. Suggestions will be taken at this time.
Do we have any suggestions or comments? Go ahead, Trustee Walker.
It's minor. I'm just wondering, at the first paragraph there where it says, such solicitations may disrupt the program of the schools, and in my mind, I was kind of wondering if we might want to say programs, but I mean, it's very minor.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other suggestions?
Okay, since we don't have any other suggestions, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 12, discussion on proposed changes to Carson City School District Regulation. Oh wait, that's the one I just did, right? No, Regulation 527, student fundraising, for discussion only.
Susan Kima again for the record. Regulation 527, student fundraising, has been reviewed by the administrators as well as Mr. Mark Kornick, Director of Operations, and Fiscal Director, Mr. A.J. Fueling. The team considered the majority of Regulation 527 to be current practice. However, since there's going to be changes to Regulation 527.1, which is the next agenda item, part of the changes was to incorporate some important information into this particular policy. If you notice that there are two additions, number 9 and number 10. It is, yes, so that is all I have to offer, unless you have any questions at this time about this regulation.
Excuse me, number 9. Can you give me an example? I mean, when we're talking about a teacher coach buying something because they need it now, I guess. And then it's said that they're not to be making a profit off of it and all this kind of thing. When has this happened?
So, for example, in the high school, they sell PE clothing. So that PE clothing students are expected to purchase, and they have that PE clothing for all 4 years. They purchase it once. The goal is not to make a big profit off of the student for purchasing PE clothing that they require in the classroom. The others is oftentimes during sporting events, and maybe places like band too. It may be necessary, may be more efficient for the coach to purchase something in bulk and then charge the students for a spirit pack or something like that, but not necessarily make large profits off of that. I believe that's the recommendation that Mr. Fueling had when we added that number to this particular rate.
Okay, and I had questions on that as well, and I noticed that if the item is required for purchase for student participation, because I didn't want it to affect, I know the different band organizations, they go and buy water and they sell it at events or Gatorade, at those type of things, and obviously they're trying to fundraise when they host those snack bars, but this does not apply to those, is that correct?
That, I believe, is something different because that bottle of water is being sold to the public to benefit the band. It's not something the student is required to have to participate in band.
And that's what I wanted to make sure on with that. Okay. Do we have any other questions on this? I'm just wondering if the t-shirt and shorts really do cost $25 for PE. I'm thinking about that.
How is that actually? I mean, how do we know that's happening? I mean, that just seems like it's this big wide open thing.
How do we know that people are selling things for a large profit, or we're just making a statement in the regulation that when they're setting their prices that we don't want them to do that? And the administrator would be in charge of making sure those things aren't happening.
And I was just going to say, on number 9, when a teacher, activity advisor, or coach, it seems like that's a series, so probably need a comma after advisor.
Okay.
Do we have any other comments or suggestions? Okay, go ahead and move on to agenda item 13, discussion on proposed changes to Carson City School District Regulation 527.1, individual student purchase of school-related items, which includes changing the name to solicitation of students. For discussion only, Mrs. Kima.
Susan Kima for the record. Regulation 527.1 is where most of the changes have occurred. This regulation has also been reviewed by site administrators who looked at this regulation and said to us, we don't necessarily follow this practice. Practices regarding fiscal procedures have changed or couldn't be consolidated in some important pieces be consolidated into Regulation 527. Mr. Mark Kornick, Director of Operations, Operational Services, and Fiscal Director Andrew Feeling also looked at the policy and found that some of the information was redundant. In its place, we'd like to rename the regulation solicitation of students. You'll see where we're gonna, there is some policy and regulation that addresses solicitation of students, soliciting students in another section, and we want to consolidate this information all into one place. So if I'm trying to find out about fundraising, I look in one place and don't have to look into different parts of the manual. So we are going to be changing this regulation to solicitation of students. There are a few corrections that I need to bring to your attention. In the first line, where it says the Carson City Board of Trustees strive, it should say strives. There should be an S there. In the last line of the paragraph, the last couple words there where it says the parent-teacher activities approved, that "the" needs to be canceled out, but it should read the activities approved by the school. We don't need the. And then in the 4th paragraph down, it should read groups who wish to conduct fundraising activities using school property. The reason why we wanted to add solicitation here, it ties in with the policy because the policy does address student solicitation. Any other questions or suggestions?
Still reading. Do we have any other questions or comments? And I do like that it's the nonprofit and for some of the local stuff, because I know getting in the Peaches, I did appreciate getting the sign-ups for AYSO notifications or Little League and those type of informations that are not-for-profit. So I think that's a useful thing that we pass out in the Peaches. But I do think it's important to also make sure that there's not commercial activities going on in there. Any other? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 14, discussion on proposal to eliminate Carson City School District Policy 909, solicitation of students, first reading for discussion only.
Susan Kima for the record. This proposal, the proposal is to delete this policy as well. The goal is to consolidate our policies and regulations into one fundraising policy, and the necessary information from this particular policy has been incorporated into Regulation 527.1.
Okay, do we have? I turned off my mic instead of turning it on. These are also similar. Are we on 14 or 15 next? 15 next. Okay, because I'm looking at going, we just said 909. Agenda item 15, discussion on proposal to eliminate Carson City School District Regulation 909 fundraising for discussion only. Susan Kima.
Susan Kima, again for the record. Regulation 909 fundraising has been reviewed and found to be, again, here redundant, repetitive. It is proposed to eliminate, we're going to eliminate this regulation in order to consolidate information into policy and regulation 527 series. As you can see, not only had field trips and previous agenda items been kind of sprinkled throughout the manual, so has fundraising, and we want to make it provide clarity for our staff members.
Do we have any questions or comments on this? Okay. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on now to agenda item 16, discussion and possible action on 2017-2018 class size reduction plan as required by the Nevada Department of Education for possible action. Susan Kima.
Susan Kima for the record. In your board packet is the annual class size reduction plan, which if approved this evening, I will be submitting to the state board or to the Nevada Department of Education on your behalf. If you pull out the proposed plan that's in your board packet, I'll walk you through the various requirements. If you look on the first page, prior to submitting the plan to you, NRS requires that local associations recognize that the plan exists and what it is. If you look on the second and third page, this is where it provides plan options for districts to choose. There are two. If you look on page 2 of 3, under number 1, the district has a choice to sign up for a class size reduction plan under the Model A, where we would address class size reductions in grades 1 and 2 at a 17-to-1 ratio, and grade 3 in a ratio of 20-to-1. We are choosing option B, and we have been choosing option B for the last 5 years. To reduce, which option B is this, to reduce the size of first, second, and third grade classes in the district must be at a 22-to-1 ratio. And then it also spreads out class size reduction to 4th and 5th grade at a 25-to-1 ratio. And that is what has been checked in the box on page 3. And it is called the alternative pupil-teacher ratio for class size reduction, which is our proposed plan. The reason why we choose this plan is that the class sizes are reasonable. It supports lower class sizes in the upper levels. And we know that we are space challenged in some of our schools, and there's less of an issue with choosing Plan B over Plan A with that. And then if you go to the last piece, is that it tells us how are we going to be, what's our district plan for looking at class sizes throughout the year. So you receive in your consent agenda quarterly reports that we're expected to provide to the State Department. But in actuality, monthly, Mrs. Gina Hines sends out our numbers to those of us at the district office, and I look at that monthly to watch for spikes. And I know Mr. Fielding watches that very closely, too. At this time, with the current numbers that Mr. Fielding reported to you in a previous board meeting agenda, in order to meet our class size reduction obligation, we will put in a request to the State Board of Education to have class size funding pay for 3 more kindergarten teachers, 1 more first grade teacher, 1 more third grade teacher, and 2 fifth grade teachers. We're looking at kindergarten teacher, obviously at Fremont, which has been mentioned before. Bordewick's class sizes are borderline 29-1, so we need to put in a kindergarten teacher there, and I believe we already have an advertisement up for that. And then the third kindergarten teacher, we put in that estimation at the time because Fremont was bordering on 100 students. So they were getting really close to needing a 5th teacher. They started the year with 3, we gave them 1, and they're looking close to needing a 5th teacher. Second grade, that teacher would be assigned to Fremont. Third grade, watching the numbers over at Bordewick on their third grade numbers. And then the 2 fifth grade teachers would be, we're looking at assigning those to Mark Twain and Fremont. They're teetering, but we're putting in a request for them. In case they go over, then we have the option to advertise for another teacher. Just one more thing, the other thing you should know is that should we not need the third kindergarten teacher, we can take that, we can ask permission from the state to say, hey, but we need it in a different grade.
So that's extra teachers and extra classes at Fremont. Are we having a space issue there with these added?
Throughout the district, yes, but we walked the classrooms with the building with Mrs. Ward, and there's space, and she's been moving folks around. Sometimes we've had tutoring in a class size room that could be in a smaller space. Sometimes we've had some other special services that could be consolidated into a smaller office type space.
I was just curious, on page 2 here, when it talks about funds received under this act. Oh, I thought it was, sorry. Try that again. Sue, on page 2. I was just curious, it talks about funds received under this act to reduce class sizes, and it mentions 1st through 6th. It doesn't mention kindergarten there. But I'm just wondering, what is the ratio for kindergarten? Because then when I go to the NRS reg, it mentions kindergarten generically, but then it doesn't really talk about it in terms of what you can exceed.
Well, and that's because kindergarten's still not mandatory.
It's still kind of in that flux.
It's still in that limbo land because it's not mandatory in our state. But Mr. Stokes has they will suggest it can be 21, 22-1 for kindergarten, and Mr. Stokes has the right to approve variances up to 25. And the difference with kindergarten over 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, he cannot go over that. And there is I cannot go to the state board and appeal to them. For example, when we submit a class size reduction report on a quarterly basis to you, you may see an area where it's highlighted yellow because we might have went over. Well, on that particular reporting period, we might be over 1 student. And we may not be in a position to hire a whole nother teacher for that 1 student because in the next reporting period, somebody might have moved away. But in kindergarten, that's not an option. Mr. Stokes has the right to approve variances up to 25 to 1, but there is no appeal to the state after that. We must hire.
Do we have any other questions on? Okay. Oh, this is an action item, so you can entertain a motion.
Item 16. I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the 2017-2018 class size reduction plan as submitted for grades kindergarten through 3rd to comply with NRS 388.720.
Okay. Motion by trustee Casiopo, seconded by trustee Green. Do we have any further discussion or public comment? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 17, approval of consent agenda for possible action.
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Okay, motion by trustee Walker, seconded by trustee Green. Do we have any further discussion or public comment? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Aye, and the motion carries. Go ahead and move on to agenda item 18, informational items for discussion only. No action will be taken. Do we have any questions or comments on the informational items? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 19, requests for future agenda topics. Do we have any requests for future agenda topics at this time?
Did we last time talk about the fingerprinting thing for an upcoming agenda item? The changes in the fingerprinting?
You talking specifically about volunteerism?
Yes.
We have talked about that in our team meeting today. I attended a superintendent's meeting last week. We have some new language from Clark County. Actually, I think our current processes are more stringent than what is being required by statute, but we are talking about the need to formalize that information and to get it into the hands of our folks. So we can certainly bring that to the board and we can talk about it, and you can ask questions about our current process and we can talk about it.
It was just brought up at that parent involvement meeting because we were having that discussion too, so.
Sure.
It would be nice to have update. And then they said they were having the superintendent meeting that next day, so we tried to get her to have a definition for what a volunteer was, but Dean Dersha wouldn't give it up, so.
That seems to be under some discussion, especially when you're talking about regular contact with a student. That means a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Do we have any other requests for future agenda topics at this time? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 20. This meeting is adjourned.
Good job.
Sue, good job.